Hello there, Beatstar community. This is iRoaster505, and today I will be discussing my Beatstar Hards tier list from Tour Pass seasons 21 to 30. Let's get started. Just a few rules before we begin. I will only be talking about Tour Pass songs from seasons 21 to 30. I will not include any promotional songs that were given out for free, like Chrome Valley or Crab Rave. And of course, the scale will be from the 1 star being the easiest to the 6 star being the hardest. The tier list will also be based upon player clearing status, DPing status, and also my opinion. The arrows marked in the screen you see will indicate whether a song is close to moving up or down a tier. And of course, only standard hards, not DX hards. From the Beatstar seasons, we only got a total of 33 hards from seasons 21 to 30. So without further ado, I'm presenting my Beatstar Hard Tour Pass list from seasons 21 to 30. Starting off with only the 1 star only goes to the impression that I get. Season 27 came out with some pretty tough normals, which included No Good and I Write Sins Not Tragedy. I made sure to look very carefully at both of them, and both of them actually were DP'd harder than actually the impression that I get. While this one's technically a slight step above Bankika in terms of difficulty, it still lands at a 1 star since most of the difficulty doesn't come until the last section of the final stage where the jumps go. It's a pretty straightforward alternative part, and I can see people DPing this pretty easily. Meanwhile, with the 2 stars, we actually get Turbo, DNA, and Pinata. DNA is a very straightforward hip-hop chart until stage 3 where it starts sinking early, which does ruin the DP for me the first try. And then the final stage starts ramping up the difficulty, but once that's done, it's pretty much over. Pinata is a weird one because most of it is basically stairs and fast taps, but if you're really good at it, it actually does land in the 2-star space. It honestly didn't bother me much. Turbo, though, is the closest one to the 2 to 3 line, because while it's an undercharted hip-hop hard, the final stage is actually fully chart the way how it goes differently with the stairs, so you gotta be careful to make sure that you do it right, otherwise it's gonna be harder enough to figure out. Moving on to the 3 stars, we actually have 9 hards that actually land inside this tier. Some hards like Think About Things and Flamingo are pretty straightforward hards until the final stage where you have to do either some more double taps or some micros. We Different is a pretty dense chart with over 500 notes, but it's one that's not as difficult as you think. If you figure out the timing really well and actually do well with the doubles and the guitar solo, it shouldn't be that hard. Glue's a really good pop note hard for me and personally, but it does have some weird parts we have to jump back and forth after the chorus here, and some weird parts with holes does actually put it at a 3. Tragedy Humanity really does a good job actually trying to be an underrated dance hard, and actually does a good job actually trying to make the patterns really fun and also not that hard. And here we also have some songs right here that do actually land on the 3 to 4 line. Swayback's a really weird one. I was debating whether it goes on a 3 or 4, but honestly, the first 4 stages are actually pretty undercharted, not that hard to do personally, until the last stage comes in here and you have to deal with all those micros. Time of Your Lives is also a pretty weird chart to figure out with the sync issue, but honestly, with the jumps and everything like that, it only barely lands at a high 3. Drift is another example of a song I didn't expect to be in the high 3 because apparently the final stage actually does a lot of jumping, but this one lands at a 3 because it actually has the lowest duration for a standard hard, leaving at a disadvantage saying that when the challenge comes, it's over. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have Collapser on the low 3-star line. It's a very straightforward hard, with only the ending having some slight micro fast patterns, and that's about it. And moving on to the 4-star, I didn't expect that many songs to land the 4-star, but here we are. 13 songs in this tier. Let's start off with Don't Stop the Party, which is honestly on the lower side of the 4-star. It's on the same level as something that's different in terms of the doubles, but it does have a slightly faster tempo and some more weird patterns that can actually ruin your run if not careful. We have some pretty interesting rock cards in this territory. Plug-in Baby, Symphony of Destruction, and Ghost in the Mirror are really good at actually trying to be really fun and undercharted rock cards. I really do like these rock cards in this game. We also got some weird hip-hop ones like Intergalactic, Everybody, and Leave Me Alone that does have some underrated charts here, but if you actually do it very carefully and learn the pattern very well, it's honestly not that hard. If I have to choose which of the 3 are the hardest, I'd probably go with Intergalactic for some of the timing here. In addition to this, Painless and High Status are actually some of the more underrated hip hop dances numbers here. And what we get here is actually some really fun patterns here that really do a good job of keeping you on your feet, whether it's fast reflexes in Painless or some of the more faster jumps in High Status. And here we get some of the more stranger picks that land the 4-star territory. What I got is a very hard swing chart, which can actually leave you jumping back and forth if you're not careful. And with the low no count and the smaller perfect plus bar, you gotta be careful with the jumps in the final stage. What you're gonna do is a very good EDM chart that does a really good job of actually trying to keep itself simple and even give yourself a challenge of jumping in the final stage. Pop, as suggested, is a pop hard that does a really good job with the vocals and instrumentation being charted. And as for Are You Gonna Go My Way, it's the highest in the 4-star to land in the 4 to 5 line. I've always found it more as a 5-star, but looking back on it, the first 4 stages are more undercharted, and it's kind of like You Really Got Me with just one section with difficulty spikes, but that's probably about it. Coming up to the 5 stars, only 4 songs land in this territory. Let's start off with Red Room, which actually lands in the lower 5-star league. This one is actually a pretty dense hip hop part. It's pretty charted well, and there's actually some certain parts here where you have to jump and actually be careful with the way you tap. If you memorize the timing, I can definitely see this as a high 4, but as for me, it does more differently than something like Everybody, which I do think actually lands at a 5. I Got You is a pretty rough R&B hard, with only the first 4 stages actually being well timed, with the final stage being some inconsistent timing and jumping that you really gotta hope you pray that it actually lands well as you expect. Purge Your Poison is the hard you can get from the free to play from season 28, and it is really good. The stacking here starting from stage 3 really does ramp up the difficulty, and even the final stage actually has some really fun escapade when it actually comes to the double taps. In addition to this, play is also in the 5-star league because it does take time after stage 3 to actually build up the difficulty, and once the final stage comes, it is over for you. You better be praying that you're good at micros, something like Go in addition, or you'll be done. And lastly is the 6-star. The 6 stars was actually the hardest to put together because these ones are actually probably the most awkward ones in the entire Tour Pass Hards of these past 10 seasons. Starting off with War Machine, it is very undercharted for the first 3 stages until the last 2 stages decide to pull a fast one on you. It is very, very tricky to actually DP the last 2 stages, which actually does bring to the thought that undercharting them was probably a disadvantage. Doing so actually make it look like you put your guard down and actually don't see anything coming, when in hindsight, that's where it comes in. Hallowed Be Thy Name is the Iron Maiden heart of season 22, and it's a case where it's actually awkward, but not in a place where it actually land in some of the hardest hearts in the game. If you're really good at undercharting and actually finding out awkward sections of a guitar solo, I can definitely see this one being a low 6 for some people, but honestly, it's pretty tricky to get the timing across. And finally, Miss Jackson, the heart of Outcast, and honestly, let's be real, their worst chart in the entire game. Song though is really great, but the chart, not so much. I really think the main difficulty comes to the final stage because you gotta really predict when the timing is. The one microblast by the ending really tries to hold it down, and if you're not really careful, it can pretty much ruin your run. So yeah. So that is my Beatstar Hard chart tier list from seasons 21 to 30. We do have some really good candidates here for some of the easiest charts in the game, and I'm really impressed that the majority of the hards really land themselves in the 4-star territory. Really goes to show you that they really are keeping up their A game when it comes to really fun hard charts. As always, thank you all for watching. A special thanks to the inspiration of Ben Madsen for making these tier lists, of actually helping me make my own for actually this video. A big shout out to the Beatstar Discord community for all your opinions and how you actually view all these charts. And if you'd like to make your own list of the one I just made right here, I will be putting a link in the description for you all to do. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.